Welcome back to the Uncontested podcast. My name is Chelsea Peace. I'm here with Stacy Geiger. Stacy, say hi.
Hi.
We've
Welcome
been,
back.
yeah, right. We've been hanging out for the last couple of weeks, talking all things uncontested when it comes to your high conflict divorce, choosing your inner peace and stepping out of the conflict that's in front of you. And we've talked about a lot of great topics so far. So if you haven't caught up, do so. There's a lot of good things that you might be missing out on. This week, I think we kind of both agree. We want to talk about like, when do you know? When do you
Right.
know when it's time for a divorce? So, you've been doing this a long time. Like, what do you feel like is that breaking point that you see with a lot of your clients?
It is completely across the board.
Okay.
Right. So I caught him cheating or I caught her cheating.
Hmm.
That's usually a hard one. But, what's interesting is the second or third time, it's completely individual all the time. And I can look outside and say, maybe you should have done this, 6 months ago. I don't say it out loud, but
Hmm.
you can see it as the outsider. The third party, I look and I'm like, why did we wait this long? Look
Yeah.
how bad it's gotten. But every single person decides for themselves. And if you could go back in time, a lot of people say, I really wish I had done this years ago.
Yeah. Yeah. I was talking to someone recently, and it's like we look for the smoking gun. You know what I'm saying? Like, we probably have been feeling it in the undercurrent of our emotional state of our marriage for a long time, of like, something's not right or something could be better. Maybe we're working on it. We said that before. We
All the
love a
time.
working on
Hmm.
it. But it's like, as a woman, I know in my situation, it was definitely because he cheated. There was plenty of other things that I could have said, like, I no longer tolerate this type of behavior. But it was almost like I wasn't allowed. I had told myself I wasn't allowed to do it unless there was this smoking gun, which was cheating on me. It was like that was the floor for me. If you cheat on me, I'm done. I can't do it. But I don't know what it is about us as women. We want to try to fight through and fix everything.
It is. It's funny because a lot of times, like I just said, all of a sudden you turn and you say, well, he said sorry, so then it happens again, and then that's when I'm looking back, I'm like, "This why not 2 years ago? Why not a year ago? Why not last week?
Yeah.
Why are we waiting and waiting?" And it's a lot of self-worth, I guess, and it's not to negate, like, should you try to work on a marriage? Absolutely. If you have the ability to say, "We've been together for 20 years,"
Hmm.
and whether it's cheating or, some sort of issue, gambling, and addiction, if you think that there is a place where you can fix that, then maybe you do attempt at first. But if we're on the fourth time of this happening,
That's a pattern.
it is, and you need to find a place where you say, I'm worth more than this marriage. One of the huge ones is I want to wait until the kids graduate from high school. And, I know we've discussed kids a million times already, but look back on that. What are you doing for 5 years, 10 years while your kids are looking at this disastrous relationship? They're learning from what they're seeing.
Hmm.
So what are you looking to lose? What are you afraid of losing? And of course, the answer is time sharing or my kids. But when you look back and balance it out, was it worth it? Because now you've lost all of these years of your life as an individual,
True.
and you don't know what your kids have learned as behavior, which is not the smartest
You said
route
a
to take.
lot of really powerful things there. So, number one, I think the most important that I took away from it is that we are the blueprint for what our kids are absorbing, right? We only know what we've learned or what we've observed. So, you are choosing to stay in a marriage that isn't working out. And like we've talked about before, the kids see it. So now they've
Mhm.
been subjected to witnessing what they think love is for the last 5 years, when you know in your heart you might have made a you could have made a different decision,
Right.
right?
Or how to treat a person, right? I
Mhm.
mean, how many times have I spoken to clients who say, he's a lot of times it's verbal abuse, and they say, he says bad things to me, he treats me poorly. Well, okay, is your breaking point when it's in front of the kids and he's calling you stupid and
Uh-huh.
dumb and you're worthless and you don't earn, your mom doesn't work hard, your mom is lazy, your mom drinks too much, and none of it could be true. But if your 5-year-old, 6-year-old, 10-year-old is hearing this, you know, they don't know not to believe that, and if they're hearing this for a solid portion of their life, maybe that is how you treat a person, and then they're leaving the house believing, in the future, I can tell my spouse, my girlfriend, and maybe it'll correct their behavior. Mm, I don't
Mm.
know that it does.
It doesn't, it doesn't, and, it's really funny you said something there as far as I'm looking at I'm looking at the camera. Why is it or what I notice is with a lot of my clients when they're coming to me and they're talking to me about what they're going through, you said that third party perspective is you say, like, you can see it plain as day how bad it's been, right? And I know me personally, when I started working with a coach and how I'm currently helping women is giving them that perspective, not in a judgmental way, but in a neutral place of saying like, so you understand that right now it sounds like you're making excuses for him. Because normally what I find is whenever somebody calls their spouse stupid and all these things, the first thing that the woman wants to do is, well, he had a bad childhood,
Mhm.
and we start, well, he's not this and he doesn't mean it. And it's funny that I was actually having a conversation with my daughter yesterday. She got a little crush on a boy at school, and I see her doing this with him. Like, I mean, he likes me. And I'm like, you just told me that he picks on you, but you say you have a crush on him, but he's not nice to you. She's, "Yeah, but he doesn't mean it."
Right, and is that a learned behavior?
Yeah, I think it is, honestly. I think it is a learned behavior. And how do I now go back and teach that? It's really interesting. I'm trying to figure that out myself. But for those that are watching us right now, that's what I would want you guys to think about right this second is what are you choosing to make excuses for that you continue to put up with um until it gets to your breaking point? Like at what point is your breaking point? And then another thing is as an adult, we have to remember that we all have choices. Like, I hate to take it back to like the Matrix, but red pill, blue pill. It's either going to be this or that. That's every option that you have. Maybe sometimes you have a third option, but either way, you need to weigh the pros, the cons. Am I willing to lose whatever would happen? If I call you a rude word right now, it might cost me your friendship. It might cost me your respect. You might laugh. I have to know that all of those things are possible. It all depends on how you perceive it, but I need to be willing to gamble that when I behave that way towards you. So, people who are stuck in those relationships where they're making excuses all the time, that person's
Right,
making a choice to treat you this way, right?
right.
Is that wake up call that I would want people to just tap into a little sooner than, well, he cheated on me for 6 months and I finally just got tired of it, which was my situation. I
Right, and it's terrible because if you sit on it for long, it just makes it even more difficult,
Yep.
and again, I get to sit back as a third party, and I'm not part of that, and I think that is something that each individual has to think about, but if you can even step outside yourself
Mhm.
and say or put it on paper, "This has happened, this has happened, this has happened." What does the other side look like? I mean, and it is scary, and that's what a lot of women fear is if they're not the breadwinner and they are with their kids all the time. Well, now, okay, if I pull this trigger, my income is going to be reduced. I don't have the same standard of living, and as
Mhm.
much as we hear online, "Oh, you'll maintain a standard of living," it's not. You can't have the the same two-party income translate into 2 separate households
Right.
equally, right? That same $100 is now maybe on its best day 50-50 or 25 cent, whatever it is, but it's you don't make more money, but separate. So you have to consider that, and then consider that you're also not going to have your kids 100% of the time. And I get that that's a real hurdle to get across, but know that that's happening.
Yeah.
There's the train is not slowing, it can slow down, but it's not stopping for that. At some point, that's the end.
You know what you just said too is as a mom, you have to remember that at 18, 19, they're going to move out and they're going to go be their own person anyways. Right? So you'll have to know that you did the best you could with the time that you had. And I think what you said, writing it down, the pros, the cons, like Write down what has happened. What could you create if you were to step out? Okay, if and these are how I overcome excuses because our brain, truthfully, it wants to protect us. It's afraid of what it doesn't know. So when we talk about like, well, my money's going to be lower. I'm not going to
Mhm.
make as much money. Okay, great. What options do I have? I can apply for food stamps. I can sell my 6 Louis bags that I have in the closet. Are they really that worth it to me? Um, Maybe we don't live in a 3,000 square foot house. Maybe we move into a 2-bedroom apartment. You have to be really realistic with what's available, but you have to remind yourself that as scary as it may be, it's not as scary as you think it is going to be because it truthfully is just going to be different.
Sure.
It's going to be worse.
And it's not for eternity, right? I
Yeah,
mean, ideally, I don't wanna say that, everybody's life is going to be better because it might. If we could guarantee that, everybody would do it the first day.
true,
But
true.
poof, divorce.
It's all
Now,
mindset though.
it
That's
is.
my
It
thing.
is. If you can get to the point that it's going to be a rough road.
Yes.
The worst Christmas or Hanukkah or Kwanzaa, whatever you celebrate, is that first one when they are not there. If you can get past that, then you can move forward. But until you accept that reality, you're going to be stuck and then you're going to wait and you're going to wait longer and you're going to wait longer. And then you arrive in my office, an attorney's office, and you say, well, we're here now. I'm like, this should have happened 5 years ago. And unfortunately, what a lot of people don't realize is while you're sitting there and you're thinking this isn't working and he's cheated on me and I'm sitting here and it's happening over and over again, he knows that there's an end to this
Mhm.
because he's cheating, right? Or he's doing something that's different from who he was when you first married, where however long ago. So he's probably moving on too. Right? So now he is also thinking, what does the other side look like for me? So it is quite possible that that dad who was never around is going to start being around just because he knows that there's an end game. And if I'm around more, I pay less child support. If I'm around more, then the kids are with me. And even if, and I hate to say it, but if he if there's a parent, I don't mean to keep saying him, but just so we remind all of the listeners,
Right.
we're just currently we're talking about women, but if the other parent is saying, if I do I can use the kids as a weapon because if you know it's coming, no matter what side you're on, you're going to do everything you can to build up your side to make it better. When it's filed, when the
Mhm.
divorce is filed, you want as many chips on your end as you possibly can get. And if that's spending more time with the kids, well, you've given him 6 months, 12 months, 3 years to do that. And, there are a lot of women who I can't believe he went to the school today and sat in on a parent teacher conference. You know, John's never done that before. Well, John knows that there's a divorce coming, so he needs to know who, Miss Joseph is.
Right, right.
And oh, he's taking the kids to an amusement park. He's never taken the well, of course he hasn't. But you know what? Now he does because when you pull that trigger and we get into court, he's been to the amusement park. He's been to the doctors. He's been to school. There's no reason why he can't exercise equal time sharing. And now your support,
Right. Right. Because
right?
they do start playing chess, right? When the
Absolutely.
paperwork starts rolling, they do start playing chess. I do remember that, and you would say, like, "Keep an eye on that." You know what I'm saying?
Exactly.
Keep an eye
Because
on
the
it.
more time you give that other person, the more time they're building their arguments.
Mhm.
The more that they can say, "Look what I'm doing." Um, if there are no kids, well, isn't it crazy when their income starts to go down? That's so weird. I
Right.
didn't get a bonus this year. I don't work 20 hours of overtime every 2 weeks. Now I get none
Mhm.
because that alimony is a component. So how much time are you giving this person? And, why do they keep taking out cash every few weeks? Well, because I don't know what cash was spent on. It was it spent on Sally? Or was it spent at Publix? He just took out cash. Or was it spent on, a 12 pack of beer because there's an alcohol issue? You're just giving that other person more ammunition
Yeah.
to fight.
That's all I'm hearing from you is if we can get to the point quickly to recognize that this person is choosing to cheat on us or this person is choosing to treat us badly. They are choosing to blow our money instead of investing it at home. Okay, as much as we may love them and believe that they have the capability to grow into someone that you know they can be, doesn't mean they're actively choosing it, and they're never going to change until you actually file that divorce paper.
Mhm.
And half the time they don't change either. They just lock in a little harder. You know what I'm saying? Um, so that's definitely, gosh, you just reminded me of so many things that I had to go through when I went through that first, like, year of divorce of, "Wait a minute, he's trying to do things he's never done before." You're like, "Yeah, of course, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah."
No, the other person becomes a model citizen.
Mhm.
It's incredible. I mean, if they would stay that way, we'd have a whole country full of super people.
Yeah, yeah.
Super parents. Everyone loves their kid the most. It'd be glorious.
Now I do have a question because 'cause we've talked a lot about, like, the patterns that you see leading up to divorce. The people who have been married twice, 3 times,
Mhm.
are they getting divorced over, like, "Nope, he did the wrong thing one time," and, like, they've raised their standards, or are they finding themselves stuck in that same pattern? They're just still divorcing the same cheater every time.
I mean, you see a lot of the same over and over,
That's so
that it
tough.
does happen. But we discussed this episodes ago,
Yeah.
right? That if you don't set aside time to learn about you, you're going to do the same thing over and over and over again. If you do not recognize that you have some sort of value and you have a type of sorts, and that type happens to be, I do whatever he says and he's just nice to me, then you're going to get railroaded every day of the week.
Oh my gosh, you've been conformed to, "It's not that big of a deal. You know what? I didn't want such and such." It's such a slow progression from this person who meets someone who thinks that they're the world to slowly over time, like, "My needs don't matter. It's okay. Like, I don't mind you stomping all over my heart every couple
Mhm.
weeks and then just apologizing and doing it over and over again." This is why whenever somebody comes to work with me, it's the first thing that we work on is you as a person, because you can't control anything outside of you. It's what are your values? What's important to Stacy?
Right.
You're my new client. Like, okay, what are your core values? I'm going to give you a sheet of 50 words. I need you to pick the top 5 that are most important to you. And then every time you come to me with a problem, I'm like, okay, so how are you not being loud and proud about what you need tying to your authenticity, which you told me was your most important thing. So if you want to be your authentic self, why is it that you didn't stand up for yourself in this instance? And I'm going to hold you back to, like, you told me these things were important to Stacy, so I'm going to make sure Stacy shines through every time you bring me a problem and force you back to yourself. And eventually, once I'm kind of like keeping you within the guardrails of what you told me the person you want to be is like, eventually you get to the point to where you're no longer worried about authenticity. Now we're worried about conquering our health goals. Okay, now you're mad at yourself because you're not losing weight. Okay, well, what'd you eat this week? Well, we went and celebrated with sushi and this, that, and the third. Okay, well, how's that back to this value? Because I do truly believe a lot of us get stuck in relationships from a young age where we didn't know ourselves. Some man made us feel pretty. We watched all the Disney movies. Prince
Mhm.
Charming's
Let's
riding in.
not knock them. They are amazing.
Yeah, they are for a little while. I always tell people my marriage was good until it wasn't.
Sure.
And then when it wasn't, it really wasn't. But the 35-year-old version of you demands more than the 25-year-old version of you if you've grown and matured and learned more about what you expect out of people. So it makes sense that there's a lot of divorces that happen in that 35-year-old
Absolutely,
age.
because if you meet somebody and you're supposed to be growing with them,
Yep.
and when you start growing apart from them, it's a totally different story, and you should see that. And what I liked about what you were saying is you had on you're showing one hand of these things are all about you. Well, I think when we get to the point where you're questioning your relationship that you're currently in, your marriage, or your second relationship or third outside of your marriage,
Mhm.
your second hand is a hard set of no's, and you need to maintain this.
It's a polar opposite. Whatever your values are, there's a polar opposite
Bingo.
thing that you have to be able to say no. And this is actually really funny because this phrase has come up multiple times this week. I think it's like the theme of the week. But in order to get closer to the version of you and the life that you want to live, you have to be able to tell the universe, God, whoever, and everybody else that you meet the things you do not want.
Yes.
People pleasers are so bad about never wanting to say no, never wanting to be difficult, and we just want to conform and make everybody happy.
Right. And that matches both sides, right?
Yeah.
So if your second thing to make yourself a better self is I've always dreamed of seeing the world, right? And regardless of your income status or whatever, you can make that happen. People, there are ways to save up money to deal with points and travel, and we all see it online, right?
Yep.
Where you can get you somewhere. If you believe you can do it, you can do it.
Mm-hmm.
And then you meet somebody and they're not, well, that's not important to them. That's not in their top 5. Well, maybe that should be your hard no. Because
Absolutely.
now, all of a sudden, once again, you're conforming to somebody else. And then, you're like, well, it's okay because he treats me nice and he does the other 4 things I wanted in a man.
You do
But,
not compromise.
whoop, now, well, great, super. So you live together for a year, you live together for 2 years, you wind up getting married. You're going to get divorced because your this over here was never fulfilled. And what's exceptionally sad is you've lost all those years of your life not doing what you wanted to do
Mm-hmm.
because I gave in. Well, he couldn't travel. He couldn't afford to travel, or he didn't want to travel. He's afraid of airplanes. He's afraid of boats. I hate cruises.
Mm.
That's okay. You're not compatible then.
You're preached to the choir. Because whenever and this is something that we have to make sure that you're paying attention to too, right? Is because they can tell you whatever they want to tell you in the beginning. I love to
Mhm.
travel. You love to travel? I love to travel.
I love travel.
And then they get you hook, line, and sinker. But every time you go to book a trip, it's like, no, I don't really like it there.
Mhm.
I don't think it's safe. That's what happened to me. I want to go see the world. I want to travel. I want to do all the things. And I would go book the vacation and try to hype him up and like, yes, let's go. And he's like, oh, he would be a Debbie Downer. And I could usually drag him along and I could make it seem as enjoyable as possible. That's one thing I think we talked about before too, making it look good from the outside so
Mhm.
that it's perceived a certain way. Um, but you really have to pay attention to words versus actions because again, that little voice inside of our head will try to convince us that, well, he said that he likes traveling. Maybe it's just Chicago. Maybe I'll say New York. And then a couple weeks later you're like, well, what about New York? And he goes, no, yeah, New York's kind of scary too. That's your opportunity to see that
He's
he
never going to be on the same page as you.
no. So
No.
decide now that it's a hard no.
Right. Have that list. If you're, so maybe not 20s, right? Because you're so young
Mhm.
when you're in a marriage. If you're in your 20s and you see it going south,
Cut it off.
it's right.
You
Just
haven't even
pull the
lived the
trigger.
best years of your life
Gosh,
yet.
no.
You're still a baby.
We love you too, but you got a minute. But if you are in your 40s, in your 50s, 60s, and you're in this marriage and you've been in a marriage for 20, 30 years, and you're saying, I really want to do these things. Life is not eternal.
Mm-mm.
And if you turn around every day and I just go home and we do the same thing over and over. And for those people who that works for, great, more power to you. I'm happy. I would love for marriages to work. My job would be different, but that's fine. We'll figure something else out. But if you can l- walk into your home and say, none of my dreams are being fulfilled. Well, how much longer are you just waiting for the other person to drop dead? That's not going to work, maybe, but no, probably not. Probably not. Rare. I don't know. Probably not. So figure out what are these where do you want to be? What are you doing on this hand to better yourself? And what on this hand is not working and that you're not willing to wait on anymore?
It was really, again, shameless plug for me. But when I hired that life coach and she sat me down and taught me my value or helped me understand, it's not that we're really teaching you, it's just helping you become more aware of who you are by asking you and pulling things out of you. It showed me that I was able to dream a little bit about, like, okay, this one wasn't it. Okay. But like the next one, he's going to know when I'm super frustrated and I've been working really hard that he needs to book me a flight. You know what I'm saying? Like,
Mhm.
I used to sit there and I would be in my car by myself and I would joke with God because I pray, like, when I'm by myself, I'll be like, "God, listen, I just know the next one, he's gonna know, like, baby, I got you a trip. I got the kids taken care of this weekend. I got you and Lindsay, you're on a flight." That one that's what I'm waiting for because I know that's what I'm looking for. And I'm not afraid to say no anymore because picking the first guy who gives you attention and he might meet three or four of those values isn't going to stick out. So why waste my time?
Exactly.
Why waste my
Right.
time?
Don't be afraid of being people are a big one. I know we barely have time to address it, but a huge one I know you're out there is I'm afraid to be alone. But if you think about it, you've probably been alone this entire time you've been thinking about the problems in your marriage.
That is
So,
s-
mm,
literally,
don't be afraid.
I told you I wrote a book. Still She Bloomed. I'm working on publishing it this year. But that's literally what my entire memoir is about is my healing journey for the 12 months and how scared I was the day he moved out, how empty I felt, and the slow and steady realization of I've been a single parent the whole time.
Right.
I just don't have to take care of him anymore. My house stays cleaner. I have more money in the bank. My stress level's lower. My house is
The coffee's
dead.
made the way you like it.
Yes, all the things
I
I
bet
can.
cabinet doors were shut.
Girl,
That's
I
a
don't
big
have
one.
cabinet doors. That's a good one, though. That's so funny. I feel like that
We're not
was
knocking all men.
it was a slick roast. It was a slick roast. No, we're not. But, sometimes, and I think that's full circle moment, how do you know when you've been there too long? It's when you can really step back and look at your life like it's a movie and say, "Is this the life that I envisioned for myself?" Is arguing with my spouse about how he woke up and made coffee for himself, but did not take the extra 3 seconds to pour me a cup and arguing about it for 20 minutes instead of just saying, like, okay, he chose not to do that. He knows that would make my morning. I remember that getting caught up in arguing, like, so you just made a latte for yourself, but I make you one every morning. You could, okay. Like little things like that. Just start taking stock in how your life feels every day, I think is a really great place to start. And um, if at any time in your relationship you're feeling like things aren't as good as they could be, or maybe you're not feeling as attractive or you're not feeling as appreciated, maybe it's a you problem. It's not always the other person. So that's where you can also come to me. I'll help you find those values. But half the time, I'm not kidding. I'm kidding. I really am. Most of the time, you work with me, there's going to be some sort of misalignment that you realize in your life. And you might end up having to work with Stacy. And you might end up deciding, I don't like Jeeps anymore. I want a Tesla. Sometimes you might decide, I don't like working for corporate America. I want to go be a business owner. But that's what happens when you finally choose yourself and what's true to you and stop thinking about what everybody else in the world thinks about
Exactly.
your life.
And look around too, because just so that we do know when there are kids in the house,
Mhm.
is this how you want them to see life? Is this the end game for them?
Yeah.
If they don't walk into your house and when you ask, how was your day? If it's not, I had a great day, because they can they can focus on how was my day at school, not my day at my house.
Hmm.
You know, I had a super day. Why? I don't know, because I played in the playground, but I didn't have a bad day because I knew I was coming home to a rough house. And they're not going to tell you that, but you can see it in
You
the
can
kid.
absolutely see it. You can
And if
absolutely see
they're
it.
not happy, is it because of the environment they're in? And maybe it's time to, call that attorney and find out what it looks like on the other side.
Absolutely. And get the therapist that you need, get the coach that you need to push you into the next version of you. And as far as like aftermath, the divorce sucks. Like, I think that's what we keep coming back to. Like, it's gonna suck. It's like going to the gym. It's almost like that, like you like, oh, the workout sucks. But like a year from now, you're
It's
going to look back and you're going to be like, it ain't that bad because it kind of paid off, Like my kids tell me all the time now, you're happier. Dad's happier.
cabinets are closed.
Cabinets are closed, right? House is clean. So there's a lot of good things to look forward to, but just know, like with any major change that you're choosing to adopt into your life, it's gonna be a lot of change, a lot of frustrating experiences if it's
Right.
high conflict. But who knows? Maybe you and the person that you are separating from, maybe it's not gonna be high conflict, and maybe y'all can both have a mature conversation. And we've just been catastrophizing the experience and saying like it's gonna be so bad.
Right. Maybe you're both miserable and you don't even know it.
Right. Maybe the best thing you could ever do is sit down and say, I love you, but I love you enough to let you go find the life that would make you happy. And I want to go find the life that would make me happy. And we could just put these kids first. Man,
Awesome.
that would be awesome. And I bet that does happen.
Yeah.
And
No,
so
it
maybe
does. Those are our favorites, but not as often as they could.
not as often as they could, but it
It gets
definitely,
us here though, so you're welcome.
absolutely. So we will see you next week. And what was it that we talked about that we said we wanted to bring up next time? You said it. I'm going to have to go back and watch the episode now because I'm so good about just bouncing
Just
off in the
now.
moment. Yeah. Yeah.
Well, it's a surprise for everybody, guys.
It's a surprise. We'll have to figure it out. Hey, reminder, go back, catch up for the previous episodes. And we want to hear from you. We want you to ask us, what questions do you have? What are you worried about when it comes to stepping into the new version of you or choosing to separate yourself from a life that you're no longer aligned with? And we want to help you with that. And we'll catch you next week on Uncontested.